black Puerto Ricans.
That's the problem.
Yo, see, that's your problem. See, you're separating stuff. Why are you separating stuff?
Separating? We have
you
Puerto
haven't even been on here for 5 minutes. You're already going dark.
How am I going dark?
There's black Puerto Ricans.
There is.
There's white Puerto Ricans.
Exactly.
There's Asian Puerto Ricans.
I don't know. I've never met one.
See, you went dark. That's why I said that.
My kids will be Asian Puerto Rican, if that's the case.
If you were Puerto Rican. True. Okay.
You went dark.
I'm not. How am I going?
Pick your face up.
Oh, speaking of Puerto Rican, my mother, she did 23andMe.
What?
She did the 23andMe, the genealogy thing. Remember the
23?
thing that you were talking about?
Okay.
Well, you mentioned a different company, but 23andMe is also this other company that does the gene.
The genotyping.
The genotyping. Yeah, she did it.
And
yeah, I mean, I'll let her you know, share her own information, but she did do it. She said she has way more questions now than she did before. She's like, I'm almost kind of mad I did it, because now I got way more questions. You know?
I love your mother.
And stuff that...
Because stuff shows up that you don't expect. Czechoslovakian, what?
Well, see, that's... Yeah, like, a lot... That stuff's like little stuff here and there, but like... one of the things that was surprising to her was that the percentage of Native American was so small. But why that was shocking to her, it's like so small it's not even existent, and according to this report. But what's crazy is like her grandmother, I think it's her grandmother, was all about Native. She would bring it to the powwows, had the long hair, had the look, everything. You know what I'm saying? So everything about this lady was, you know what I mean, that she was Native American in some way. She even had the culture.
Yeah, but see, there's a problem with that. I'm gonna tell you the problem.
We have to be identified.
No, I'm gonna tell you the problem with the Native American phenotype is that they really don't have a good DNA, genetic DNA makeup for it. You get what I'm saying?
Well, they have to.
No, they. All right, name somebody that you know that's predominantly Native American.
Native American.
No. Somebody that you know right now. Like, for example, if I was to say, I know somebody who's Nigerian, that's predominantly Nigerian, I can name that. You can't name a person or whatever that's predominantly...
So my brother-in-law is from predominantly Cape Cod, Narragansett.
Yeah, just because that doesn't matter.
Not Narragansett, Cape Cod. It is slipping my mind. But, yeah, he is.
He's what?
Native American.
No, okay. Here's another thing about that. Here's another thing about the Native Americans that we must understand, that their history has been misconstrued due to the simple fact that when, at a certain point, there was groups of people, you know, when they were saying, okay, America's coming over, we're taking up the land or whatever, we're going to give Indians or the Native Americans or the indigenous people a certain amount of land for them. There was also people that had no Native American blood taking up that land, so when you're taking up land, you're putting your name, your family creed on something that's not yours.
Well,
so now you got a group of people that aren't Native American but are claiming Native American to get with the benefits. But when you're dealing with when you're dealing with the DNA prototype, you got to understand that there's Native Americans that were my color that were very dark.
It's very interesting to me.
That were very dark. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So when you're dealing with a prototype, a phenotype, what DNA sample are you getting it from? Because you have to compete. For you to say, okay, you're not a Native American, you have to have a sample or DNA markers to say, okay, this is what a Native American is. Where are you getting that sample from?
From the tribes.
Which tribes?
There's so many to
okay, now when you get in these tribes, right, we got to understand that these tribes, a lot of them aren't full-blooded.
Well, as
a lot of them are not.
I'm sure.
So, okay, so now if you have...
your grandmother or your great-grandmother...
No, but here's the thing. If they're taking a DNA marker from
mom.
No, if they're taking a DNA marker that says, okay, it's a European...
Upstate New York tribe.
Yeah, if they're saying it's a European... If they're saying it's a European more... Like, it might have a European with these little markers or whatever, it won't register his mother because his mother has African or Africanoid stuff.
I was about to say, is that Native American embedded in the percentage African? Is that
Here's the thing. The history don't want to tell what it is. the real true indigenous people of America were basically annihilated.
No, they still exist. They're not all annihilated. Maybe the Taínos was almost annihilated, but no, there was a small percentage that still exists. Of course,
I just told you what happened to that small percentage.
But it wasn't. It couldn't have been diluted.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. That you're not going to find a purebred Native American.
Disagree.
The reason why I'm going to say it is because you can disagree all you want, but when people came here from Europe, whatever, they came here, they pillaged, they give the freaking natives they gave them all type of diseases.
Right.
They killed them. Then they brought the African in here.
Right.
And then when they brought the African in here, the Indians that were still here ended up being slaves with the African. So now,
but you can't say they're all diluted. There's more.
No,
you find a higher percentage of in America, like overall, and even Canada, because there's Native Americans in Canada.
Okay, so what color? All right, this is a perfect.
It's not about color,
No, it is about color. What color would you say that the Native Americans are? And I already know where you're gonna go. Go ahead.
They're non-white.
They're non-white, but are they black?
I don't know. They're darker than white.
Seminole. Do you know what the word Seminole means?
That's a Floridian Native American.
It's a Floridian Native American, but you know what the word Seminole means. It means dark. It's a dark. These indigenous people that we're talking about, they are dark-skinned people.
Of course.
So, all right, they're dark-skinned people.
Okay.
Well, when you think of a Native American, what's the first thing you think of? A Pocahontas type. That's not too dark, not too light, but acceptable. And that's
acceptable.
Acceptable, yes. Just same thing with I'm gonna go with Dale. Same thing with Asian culture. If you look at, I know some Cambodians that are darker than me.
I'm not saying that all Native Americans are pure.
I'm just telling you.
I'm just telling you. With other cultures. I'm saying that
you're not gonna find a purebred. You're not. There's people that are Italian walking around. There was this actor.
Is that your mom?
That's my mother.
See? She's probably watching. I want to hear what she has to say.
Hello?
Thank you.
Hey, you just called in and we're doing a taping of the podcast.
Perfect timing. Perfect.
And Leonie says it's perfect timing because we were just debating. I didn't tell you DNA business, but what I did say is that we were questioning percentages of Native American, and we were just actually having that discussion right when you called in.
Oh.
So, you're welcome to join us.
No, I'm not prepared for that discussion.
Okay.
But I did call you about your podcast.
Oh, okay. All right, so we'll talk later then?
If you can hear, if you're recording me, then I won't say anything to say. Because it's about Anthony.
Anthony's right here. We'll talk about it later.
Uh-oh, I'm always in trouble.
I want to hear this pause. Let's put this on pause.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
I'll talk to you about it later.
All right, we'll call you back. We'll call you back.
I am always in trouble, yo. I am always in trouble.
All right,
No, constructive feedback. But if you have questions for me with respect to the DNA test, I will certainly answer. I'm left with more questions than I believe I got answered.
Oh, I so want to like pick your brain about it because I was thinking of doing it myself.
No, man. Well, like I said, when it comes down,
feel that people,
this is how I feel about.
I feel like there's still Native Americans that are pure Native Americans.
There's no purebred Native Americans. There's none.
I disagree.
There's none.
I disagree.
The reason why I'm going to tell you there's none because, all right, like I said, most indigenous people that were here were dark skinned, and if you go through history, the Eurocentric agenda has always made Native Americans lighter than what they actually are.
But there is a percentage that are still Native American.
All right,
so Native American.
All right, even if you went by that standard, different tribes mean different DNA pictures. So for you
different regions.
Yeah, different regions. So if you can't have accountability to say, okay, we're gonna get each and every individual tribe, then the test is bogus because you can have.
In other words, when they do a Native American, when they do a Caucasian test, everyone has the same marker, but they're not gonna say like, oh, this is an Indiana marker, and oh, this is a Rhode Island marker.
No. They do that. They do that. They do Italy or certain stuff because they can. The reason why they can is because
Italy is a country. We're talking about states and a nation. Nationally, the United States.
Okay, you're talking about what state does the indigenous people of America have? None. They were annihilated. Basically done.
Annihilated.
Then they weren't. Then bring me a thoroughbred. You're not gonna. Okay. Yeah. Not a full breed though.
Not 100. It's not 100%.
Okay, so when you don't have 100% and you're doing a DNA marker, then it's false. Because if you're telling me a Native American person that has European blood in them, all of a sudden that changes their DNA marker. So in Dale's mom's case, where she could have Native American in her, but maybe from a darker DNA that has no European blood in it, it's not going to register on a DNA test because they're only going to use a DNA marker that has European blood in it, so it won't register. So basically, the test becomes void.
And that's kind of what we were saying, Mom, when you were telling me, like, the one thing that was surprised was that we know the Native American is there. Your grandmother or great-grandmother was had the culture, and she exposed you to the culture, but it seemed like the test didn't show any, reflect that in any way.
So maybe...
It's still a very small percentage, very small Native American.
Yeah.
Probably, so small too small to even speak of. It was just very small. But when I look at my father's side of family, they were very much indoctrinated into their Native American culture and practiced certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I observed.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't born in Puerto Rico. I wasn't born in Puerto Rico. I was born here, but both my parents are from there, and everything I grew up to was everything having to do with Puerto Rican culture.
All right, so imagine if you take that DNA test.
And this has happened.
This has happened, right? Imagine you take that DNA test.
Yes.
They don't have a DNA marker for Puerto Ricans because Puerto Ricans are
mixed.
That's a whole new breed.
Taino, and European.
Okay, so I bet you any money, right?
I can tell you right now.
You do that DNA test. I know one race is not going to show up. And that's that Taino. It's not going to show up like how it's supposed to show up. You disagree?
Taino will show up because I have the look of the Taino.
What type of you have the look of a Taino?
My grandfather was from Spain, so he's white with blonde hair and green eyes. My great grandfather was from Spain. Do
you know somebody who's purebred of a Taino tribe?
I don't.
I'm telling you, most people don't.
Yeah.
Don't just because you have traces, so that makes a DNA marker void.
But they do have a DNA. They do have a marker for Taino Indian descendants that just came up, and if you want to register, they're asking folks who want to see if they have that Taino marker.
So basically,
you can call them,
they're asking you for a tainted, a void DNA marker. It's just like dogs. You have a purebred, and then you have mutts. Once you start dealing with mutts, you can't get the purebred from the mutt. You can always see in a mutt where they got their purebred gene, but you can't. Purebred. I'm talking about a purebred. There's purebred dogs, but you can put it this way: you can always pull the pedigree. All right, so you can say, all right, that's a German Shepherd. If it's a pure German Shepherd, cool. But now if you have a mutt, you can say, okay, well, I can see where that mutt has some, German Shepherd.
Right.
But you're never going to be able to get the full German Shepherd because it's now mixed with maybe, I don't know, a poodle or a Labrador or whatever. So once you contaminate that, if that dog, that's the mutt that has, let's just say it's a half lab and it's a half German Shepherd, now that dog mixes up with a Rottweiler. You mean to tell me that DNA marker is not going to be, that DNA marker just turned even smaller now. So to find, and that's only with 3 generations. So now that DNA marker to trace back to the German Shepherd's even worse. Now, if the dog that, you know, that was half lab and half German Shepherd now mixed with the Rottweiler, and then you got the Rottweiler, now that dog ends up mixing with a Beagle.
That's how
you mean to tell me that DNA marker from that Beagle is going to be able to trace back to the German Shepherd? No, because it's been contaminated. It's been too mixed. You can literally wipe out. You can literally wipe out a whole DNA marker within 5 generations.
You're 100% guaranteed that there's not one Native American that's pure Native American of their tribe existed in this country.
Absolutely, yes. I 100% know.
I disagree.
No.
They cannot be, because they weren't all annihilated.
They weren't all annihilated.
No,
okay, so they weren't.
They were not.
All right, so name a tribe that name a tribe that wasn't.
I don't know, the Dakotas, the Wampanoags,
the Wampanoags, definitely. Narragansetts, definitely. Everyone, even the tribes that moved out west. There's a reason why they moved out west, because they had to get away. You had the Louisiana Purchase. You get what I'm saying?
It's interesting.
And then you got to understand that these Europeans came here and they gave them disease. So there was a lot from East Coast. The genocide was real.
They lost a lot. Like, I think there was like a few that had survived because of measles or what have you, whatever they brought.
And even if you did find a person that was 100% Native American, it would only pertain to that tribe. So now you're dealing with a one DNA marker. Like, for example, Dale's mom's tribe could be from, like you said, from upstate New York, right? Mm-hmm. But now you go, okay, well, we found a tribe that's thoroughbred or pure in Dakota. You can't say, well, okay, that tribe we're going to use a DNA mark for all Native Americans.
No, I never said that either.
But that's what they're doing in these DNA tests.
Well, that's wrong. But there is markers pertaining to different.
That's why
tribes.
I'm saying.
Like
so Dale's mom and her family might be right in the aspect of, yeah, we do have that, but the DNA sample that I sent and the DNA marker that you're comparing it to, is it from a New York tribe or from that area? Where's that DNA marker coming from?
I'm going to do this thing. What is it, 23 what?
23andMe.
23andMe?
Yeah, 23 represents the chromosome.
Because I know I'm going to have I'm going to have French, definitely French, Spain, and Taino.
And what if you don't?
Maybe send that back. What
if you don't?
I will. I can guarantee it.
You can guarantee it. You can guarantee it?
Yes, I'm doing it.
Okay. And when it comes back and there's no Taino, then what?
First of all, it's Taino.
Okay, but what if you don't have it?
You're like, where'd you get these DNA markers?
What if you don't have no French and all that other stuff?
I do have French though.
Here's the thing.
How do I know? It's because my father's family are from France.
Just because somebody. All right, here, let me explain another thing to you. All right.
During the World War II, they hooked up.
Nah, this is another thing y'all need to understand. This is another thing you need to understand. Okay, if I'm born in China, I'm born in China.
You're born in China.
Does that make me Chinese?
Yep.
DNA, from a DNA standpoint. From a DNA standpoint,
from
no.
From a DNA standpoint, like me, my parents are both Puerto Rican, but they have Spain, Spanish, and
avoided
French.
the question.
I'm not avoiding the question.
Look at my DNA makeup.
With the same
parents and everything. I'm born on Chinese soil.
Right. You're Chinese because of your birth.
No, I'm Chinese.
Your birth.
No, my DNA
what it is now.
So then I'm not Chinese. I can't put. This is the problem what people are doing. People are saying, well, because that's what's happening. And with these DNA tests, well, my family was from France. They might have just visited there. They might have just stayed there. They might have had a baby there between themselves and then came back. That don't make you your DNA French. That just means you live there. You can't say, hey, you know what? No, you can't say I'm French.
That's the point.
You can't say I'm French because my family live there.
He came from France. They got married. They had a baby in Puerto Rico. They had children in Puerto Rico, which actually almost all of them died from yellow fever, by the way. So just one little more history that I found out about before my dad passed. But anyways, they have French in them because they came from France. They had children.
Get the DNA test. And if there's no French in it, then you're gonna be like, oh snap! And that's what's happening with these DNA tests.
I'm looking. A lot of people.
I remember I was watching.
How long did it take, Mom, to get the results?
It takes like 6 weeks.
Ma, you still there?
Yes, it took about 6 weeks.
Okay.
So, I told you 6 weeks. You know why? Because
what's frightening is that there was such a high percentage of, I think it was North or Western European, which is broken down into Irish and British. I think that was a high.
She's laughing at me. No. But that's my mother, though. So,
yeah, so his DNA markers are different.
Yeah, my father was niggerish.
So his markers will still have some, but his is going to be different.
You know, with the West African, there were so many people of the West African region, you just don't know.
Yeah, so they usually say sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa.
West, which is by the coast, and we know what's on the coast. I mean, you have the Cape Verde Islands on the coast. You have all these different coastal areas in Africa. So it doesn't really tell you specifically. It just says West African from the farthest western coast. So I don't know what any of that means. You know,
I can break that down. I know why it's like that.
Anthony's gonna break it down for you.
I'm gonna tell you why it's like that. I'm gonna tell you why it's like that. So when slaves, this is another thing that people, when you don't know your history, and I'm not saying Mom Dukes. I'm just saying in general. Mom Dukes, don't give me a beat. I know you know your history. I'm just saying in general. Some people don't know the history. They'll sit there and just say any old thing because they just think about it. When you're a person of African descent that lives here, the reason why they're only going to give you a certain amount and say, well, it's West Africa, due to the simple fact when they was picking up slaves, they was picking them up from a region, not just. You got to understand that Africa now they put it in countries to separate and divide, but. Like when you deal with tribes, like Nigeria, for example, Nigeria has like 3 or 4 tribes. They have my mind's going a little blank, but they have the Yorubas, the Ezbo, a few others, and they can't speak to each other.
With a dialect, you mean?
Their language, they have to use English because they can't speak to each other. So now when you're dealing with an African person that has African descent that's in the Americas, you got to understand that when the slave trade happened, you had groups, you had Portugal picking slaves from maybe, from Liberia, certain areas. Then you had like Angola, a little bit, it's West Africa, but more towards the south. Then you had, British and French slaves picking from certain areas. So when they're picking all these slaves from certain areas, they're from different places. And now you bring them over, you're raping them and all this other stuff. You're messing, like I just said, you're messing up with the DNA markers because now you're also having these tribes inbreed with each other. You know what I'm saying? And these tribes of different African descent, they have different DNA markers. So now when you get a DNA test and you're of African descent, they can't trace you back for the simple fact, like she said, like Mom Duke said, you have the Cape Verde Islands. What the Cape Verde Islands is, Portugal had took that, but that was like the pit stop. So what they would do is they was taking, so many different tribes or whatever, and then they was raping them. So now you have a group of hybrids, which in Cape Verde it's like 30% are actual African, and the other like 70 are mulattoes or octoroons or whatever the case you be. Then you got a whole nother culture. Well, so and now you have a whole nother language like Haitian Creole. It's a slave language. Cape Verdean Creole, it's a slave language. So when you're taking all these different Africans from all these different regions that have all these different DNA markers and languages and cultures that might be similar but slightly different, and then you mix them with the European, and then you mix them again with the indigenous people that are here. You get what I'm saying? And then you got to understand that Irish people were slaves and they mixed them up too. Right. Remember when I was saying the Mutt's DNA? It's gonna be hard to come back. They can say, well, hey, we know you're of West Africa, but we don't know what part. Right. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that makes sense, sure.
It makes sense, but...
And most Creole languages, including like Hawaiian Pidgin, all of them are derived from people being brought there to work,
Yeah,
to enslave or
enslaved.
to be farm workers, and mixing their language with the language of
The slave
their
master.
masters, and that's how Creole, the language, is created.
Yeah.
When a certain percentage of people speak it a little bit more, it becomes its own language, which is Haitian Creole, Cape Verdean Creole.
There's a lot of
Pidgin.
different Creoles,
There's
a lot of different stuff.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know,
for sure.
but that goes
But
to tell you how much
I'm interested
your
in
culture
doing-
gets taken.
And I was interested when we first started talking about octoroons back in the day, about us taking these tests that your mom took. So
Yeah.
I'm not.
But see,
really
like I said, the
wanna do
problem
it.
I have with those tests is that the DNA markers are not. You can't like Mom Duke said. You can only go and say, well, okay, they're sub-Saharan African or from West Africa.
Well, and I get that.
Yeah, you
But I
get that,
still
but that's
wanna know
a
where the
bad
bulk-
DNA mark. That's a bad DNA mark because when you sit there and think about West Africa, you got to also understand like.
I think you're afraid to do it. You know why?
No, I'm not afraid to do it, but I know it.
'Cause I
Will,
think-
I know it will be
Dale
incorrect.
and I look at each other like, "Real."
I'll do it, but I know it won't. I know it won't be what it was supposed to be because you
What
can't.
would shock you, like if it showed up, like, oh my god?
Me, I know nothing would shock me for the simple fact that I'm not. I have all different colors in my family, so I wouldn't be shocked to see like German or Irish or some other stuff. I wouldn't be shocked to see that the Native American isn't what it should be. You know what I'm saying? It isn't what it should be due to certain things. But like I said, my great grandfather is a chief of the Native American. He wasn't full blooded.
Yeah,
You get what I'm saying?
I do.
But if I may say something, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, I think with DNA test that I had done, it also talked about a small percentage of Southeast Asian and Middle Easterns, which I think from that region, West African region, will probably be more Arabs. But I think you just have to understand the whole history of migration, and not only that, you have to look to within how many generations that this DNA test for each population tells you, and I think it provides some of that information. I don't know how extensively, because I didn't really read the full report. But how many generations away is this? Is it, 1, 2, 6, 10? And then what does all that mean? And look at it in terms of migration of the African people.
Yeah, because they moved around. They moved
migrated
around.
out east and west from that region. Probably we all can trace back to Africa.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. But even in the United States, think about it. Like, when the slaves were free, they didn't stay down south. A lot of them moved to the West Coast. You know what I'm saying? And this was, 50, 60, 70 years ago. A lot of them moved to the West Coast, to the Midwest, up north. We forget that we are people human beings in general, just move around.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When you start to move around, you start to mess with other people's culture. You start to inbreed. You start to, you know what I mean? Because that's what people do. They inbreed with each other. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if that's the right term.
No. I know what I'm saying.
No, yeah.
Like Native Americans would inbreed with each other, not even knowing. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it's like in I call it the DMV area. And that's Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia. You know what I'm saying? Where they have to be very careful because they might end up going out with somebody that might be family you don't know. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and this is certain things that we fail to forget, or not fail, we fail to think about when you're dealing with DNA markers.
Actually, you just reminded me during a family reunion, my Coral, her closest friend, she found out at our family reunion was her cousin.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They were they're friends, but it was really cool because they're like,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm being honest with you. I hate to say this like this, but when it comes to those DNA tests, I feel like the only people that actually win are Europeans because they actually have more purebred than, you know what I mean? Like,
I think if anything, it's to show that we are, like, for me, we are all, like, people always try to be extreme, people take it to the extreme. Like, for example, the extremists, the white privileged extremists, there actually is a name for them, the Aryans, I think they're called.
yeah, Aryans.
Aryans, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all about purebred and blah blah blah, and then it's like, no, like, United States was built on migration. So you yourself are not. So if anything, it's just to show that we are all made from the same fabric. We just come from different dyes, right? We all beat, the heart beats the same. We all have families. We all care about certain things. If anything, it would be to prove that there is no pures per se.
Well, I think people are searching for who they are and where they came from, and trying to figure out where they fit and what they identify with. So I think there is some of that.
You, Dale, because people always try to put us in a box, try to define us by the way we look.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't define someone by the way they look. And at least you never let anybody else define who you are.
Right.
So I think it's nice to know, you know, your history, your DNA. But I think Anthony said something earlier. I don't know if you can ever really know. I don't know. I'm not a DNA expert. You know, I'm not a scientist. So I don't know if you can ever really know exactly where you came from. It's just, you know, what you, like you said to me earlier, Dale, it's where you're at now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your culture now. If nothing else, I'm an American, whatever it is. I'm an American mixed up with a whole bunch of other stuff.
Let me explain.
And I think all of us are. I don't think any of us, but people look at you and they want to put you in a category, in a box, for a myriad of reasons they want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, and I chose to do that because I was curious. I was just curious and interested to see, you know, I thought it could tell you exactly where you come from, but it doesn't. It doesn't tell you that. It can't.
Here's the difference between myself and my mother, and let's say the two of you guys, right? Someone can say, hey, what are you? You can say, I'm Puerto Rican, right? And you have a whole culture, and you have traditions and customs that backs that up, right? You can say that. You say, oh, I'm from Cape Verde, my family's from Cape Verde. You have a culture and tradition that backs that up. You do certain things, you eat certain foods, you know what I'm saying? You have an ethnic base and background that you can point to.
I have two.
And the other is?
Native American.
Native American.
Or indigenous.
You can say that, right? But there's a lot of people like me, right? So when people say to me, what are you? Just say I'm black. Like, really think about that. Of course, if you say, what are you? I'm going to say I'm black. That's what it is, right? But if you really think about what that means, what I'm actually saying is, I don't know. I'm accepting someone else's term for who I and what I am, right?
Yeah.
So the only, and when I was talking to my mother, talking about for us, it's really about what we are now. So my culture is not a Puerto Rican culture. We don't have the certain drinks on the house. We don't have that. You know what I'm saying? What we do have is what we're doing here in America. Now, the African American culture is a specific culture, probably more recent, not as ancient as, you know what I'm saying? But so my culture is the African American experience. You know what I mean? It is hip hop, it's rap music, it's the soul food. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely a distinct thing. But it's always I think it's kind of a disservice. Like you said, you can't really. I think that's what some people are looking for. They want to be able to go back and say, okay, well, what can I really identify with? I know I can identify with being black, but that's not the real truth from a historical perspective.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And not being able to go anywhere, not being able to trace it to anything a little different, is that's something that's missing, I think, from a lot of African Americans. You know what I'm saying?
Like Anthony said, where you are from doesn't mean that what your DNA says.
Right.
Those are two different things. So you can be from someplace but not be of that place, if that makes sense.
Right.
So you can be from Puerto Rico and not be Puerto Rican.
Right.
But you can have lived in the Puerto Rican culture and have adopted their culture, but your DNA doesn't say that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so you know, you could be from, like I think Anthony said something about he could be born in China doesn't make him Chinese.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I said.
And if you're born in China and raised there, you probably undoubtedly will adopt the culture and the rituals but it doesn't make, in your DNA, it doesn't say you're Chinese.
Right.
Because so when someone says, where you from, you say China, it doesn't make you Knese.
Yeah. They look at me crazy if I said that. Look at his eyes.
You know, so your point is well taken, but yeah. So that's all I'm saying.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's just an interesting thing. I just find that people, because of a certain look I have, and I don't fit into most people's stereotype, when they look at my skin, they want to put me in a box and tell me I'm this, that, or the other. And when I say, like Dale said, I'm black, and that's what I identify with, what does that really mean? And so for me, I have to, what does that really mean for me? And so, I've been told, no, you know, you're Puerto Rican, you're Indian, you're this, you're that. And so, for me, it just wasn't enough to say, I was born in America and I'm black. It's like, okay, I need to know what that means for me. But I think the DNA stuff brings up a lot more questions, and it forces you to better understand the history. Because that's really, really important. Especially, Dale, when you look at that report, look at all the different groups. It certainly tells you about the movement of the people. I mean, you talk about Southeast Asian, Middle Eastern, Native, I forget what others were, Irish, British. It tells you about the movement of the people.
One thing that I did use, I used to do census back in 2000. Actually, 2010, I did the census when I was a census worker working in New Hampshire. And through my training before going out and doing the census with the citizens, they taught us how you can use it for genealogy and for tracing back. When I told my father this when he was still lucid, I went into the data bank and I traced back his family that he wasn't aware of what had happened, and it come to be, as you're looking at it every 10 years, come to find out, like, the kids did exist, and some of them died from, a lot of them died from yellow fever. So as you're looking through it, you see that they had died off at young ages and stuff like that. So my father had a little bit of closure because he remembers as a child, because the census goes back about 100 years, and in Puerto Rico, around the time of citizenship, which they started doing the census, so I was able to go back to the barrio and find his family. So, so if you're not aware of that, you can use census and you can go back about 100 years or more.
But even with census,
to show like your citizenship, like showing people your family.
But even with census, okay, you got to deal with certain names. Like, all right, a perfect example is when you're dealing with names, when the census. My dad is Charles Smith Jr., but technically he's not a junior due to a misspell, I have the word. But anyway, so my dad's name, well, his name is Charles Summer Smith Jr. My grandfather's name is Charles Sumner Smith Sr. Wow.
You messed that one up.
You get what I'm saying?
But it's still a paper. There's still a paper trail.
Yeah, there is a paper trail.
There is a paper trail.
Some people, especially with census and something like that, some people change their last names to, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm with this family, I'm with that family, and certain things that don't, like, you know what I mean? Like,
but you get the gist of it, and you do see the relationship every few years. You see it. It's crazy.
If you're not doing a census, every year, then what's the point? They do the census every 10 years.
I think if you take all of these tools together, you can start to build a picture.
Absolutely.
Right? If you use certain
you
things,
can build a picture. I think it's going to give you with this DNA thing. I think it gives you kind of like a blueprint, but it don't pinpoint. Right. You get what I'm saying? It kind of gives you an idea of what you kind of are.
Which is kind of what you already thought anyway.
Yeah, but then there might be some stuff that you might know, because there's some people in some certain families that lie. Or
you were right.
You know, there's certain things I feel like, for example, me being, like I said, I have Cape Verdean blood within me. And there's some people that I've talked to, and that are Cape Verdean, whatever, that they won't claim Cape Verde, they'll claim Portuguese. So a lot of the Cape Verdeans, when they came here, because they look octoroon or mulatto or whatever, claimed Portuguese. You get what I'm saying? Like I had a girlfriend, you know what I mean, that she could literally go for being Portuguese. And she's not. She was born in Cape Verde, all that other stuff. Right. So then you got to think Cape Verde is a mix of so many different mixed people. So you might have a family member that's going, well, I'm not black, I'm Portuguese, but then they get that DNA sample and go, oh, hold up, where's this 30-40% sub-Saharan African coming from, or this West African coming from? Oh no, I've been Portuguese. You know what I'm saying? Because
that's their culture, and that's what they grew up in.
No, it's not their culture you got to grow up in. Is imagine if you was to claim, if you came here in America during the racist era, why would you claim? Why would, even if you wanted to be a choice? You have a choice. Hey, listen, I can say I'm Cape Verdean and be a little bit more dark skinned, and when I come to America, but I'll be called all type of N-words, or I could say, you know what, I'm a dark skinned Portuguese and live a better life. Which one would you pick?
My dad looked Italian, and he got beat up in Boston by a group of black men, and then he started speaking Spanish, and they all stopped. And they're like, "Oh, he's not Italian. He's Latino. He's Puerto Rican." But they broke his nose. It was really bad. It was really bad. They jumped him because they thought he was Italian and he was in the wrong part. But his wife at the time, who is is Native American and I believe black in her culture, was married to my dad, so he lived in the area. So when he got surrounded, they were like, "What are you doing here, WAP?" And then they beat him up, and he started speaking Spanish, and they realized they made a mistake.
Yeah, see, it's stuff like that. You know,
and to them, he didn't look Latino; he looked Italian. So
yeah. So imagine if your dad said, "You know what?" Imagine if your dad said, "Hey, you know what? I'm coming here, whatever the case may be. If I tell people I'm Puerto Rican, I might have a rougher life here, but I do kind of look Italian. I'll roll with that."
No. He was a proud Puerto Rican.
I know. I'm saying. What I'm saying in general. I'm saying.
Identity.
What I'm saying is, your dad could say. Your dad could have said, "I don't want to be that proud," because there's some people that be like, "You know what? I'm not going to take that route. I'm going to take this route." And then they get a DNA test years later, and they're like,
"You say that," and I will tell you this, and this is really hard for me to admit. But growing up in my home, my father did not, and I repeat, did not want my mother to teach us Spanish. We were not allowed. My father said, "I came to this country and I got beat up. He came, I was attacked. I'm not having my children go through that. So in this house, we will speak English." And we were forbidden to. So I remember not knowing English, but I remember as I started going to school, like my mom would get in trouble if she spoke to us in Spanish. It was really tough to see.
Imagine that. You could imagine that. Now think about that, right? Imagine if that really stuck. You could have lost a generation. That's happened in my family. You know what I'm saying?
It's already starting though.
Yeah,
like of 5 children in my mother's home, of the 5 children, I'm the most fluent in both languages, reading and writing, because at 14, when I realized the value, I started taking it more seriously in school. So I learned how to read, write it, and speak it better. So I don't speak Puerto Rican Spanish. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you don't sound Puerto Rican." I did it in school. I did it in college. I did a different dialect. Yeah, there's different dialects.
Yeah, there's different.
But I remember that. I felt so bad.
But imagine your dad did that, right? You imagine your dad did that. He probably did that to save. It was a mistake. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, a lot of people do stuff like that, but just to save themselves. Right. You know what I mean? Because like I said, if you're Cape Verdean and you say, "Hey, you know what, I'm Cape Verdean," a whole bunch of people are gonna call you the N-word. But if you can say, "You know what, I'm Portuguese," and you can avoid a whole bunch of stuff, you're going to. So same thing in your situation.
I mean, it didn't help me. I still spoke English terribly. It didn't help you. And Spanish terribly, and I look Latina, and I still got beat up because of my look.
Yeah,
I ended up being feisty.
It didn't help you, but it also hurt you, because think about it like this: your sisters and everything.
They're not fluent.
You literally almost or possibly lost now a whole generation lost the language that was inherited due to racial endeavors and certain stuff like that. You know what I mean? Just due to people being racist and not understanding or whatever. So now look, you struggling to hold on to it.
14 grandchildren who are not fluent in Spanish.
See? All it took was your father to say no.
One time, yeah.
And now, look, and you're struggling to maintain it.
I'm trying.
You get what I'm saying? That's all it took was one generation to say no.
Yeah.
So, and that goes into DNA and culture and all that other stuff. All it takes is one generation to say, we don't want to, even though we know we're Portuguese, or we know we're Puerto Rican, or we know we're this, we don't want to claim that because we don't want to deal with the scrutiny and the racism and the beatings and all this other stuff.
Right.
You know what? I'm not going to claim it. Even though I know this is what I am,
right.
I'm not going to claim it. I'm going to say I'm something else because I look like that. I can get over on that. Now you got 2 or 3 generations not questioning what that one person did, right. and going, hey, well, you know, we're Portuguese, whatever. Do a DNA test. Hold up. What's this African stuff coming from? What's this Spanish stuff coming? What is this? Hold up. Pops never told me about this, or my last name was, especially if my last name is a Spanish last name. Oh, well, hold up. Your great grandfather's last name, he was German. That's why you get this German. Or all I've seen it happen all the time.
It is known. Yeah, there is a name. But thank you very much, Mama Dukes, for joining us.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to doing it now.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
You were talking about.
All right, I will.
You were talking about Africa.
I am in trouble. I am in trouble.
Why?
No, this is somebody else.
So no, I know we're gonna talk about slave trade, and that's actually today still happening.
What?
The slave trade.
Oh,
I saw that today. There's been CNN talked about it. They sent people over with. When they heard it was happening, they sent people over with hidden cameras. There was actual trade going on, like an auction. And when they went to approach the 3 guys, they were dumbfounded. Yeah, in Libya. They were dumbfounded. They couldn't speak. They were so shocked and they were so tormented. And whatever they put them through, they couldn't even speak.
This goes back to what we was recently talking about as far as like the internet and the control or whatever. Even with the media, they control what they want us to see. You know what I mean? And CNN and all these news, you know what I mean?
But nobody knew. Like, I didn't know.
Yeah, nobody. You know why you didn't know? You know why you didn't know? Because world news and local news and world, of the United States or whatever, it's 2 different things. Slaves? Yeah, of course. There's,
Did you know they were still selling slaves?
Yeah.
In Africa?
Not like that. I figured during wartime. No, I was surprised that it's so like
because you're really into world news, though. I noticed about that.
The reason why I know about Libya, been doing this for a very long time.
They're still doing it.
I gotta say, I hate to say this, but the Arab has been one of the biggest players in any slave trade that deals with any Africans.
Well, Libya said that they're looking into it now, so they're sending out some kind of task force to.
They've been one of the biggest. Think about it. A lot of people it goes to me with my unk and my eye of Heru and me being a Kemetic spiritualist. Let's be honest, man. You got a group of people. Don't get me wrong, I got some Arab friends or whatever the case may be. They got a group of people that don't belong there, that are not indigenous to that land, that took over that land. After, or whatever the case may be, they're not shooting noses off of sphinx and statues for no reason. It's because the reason why it goes back to DNA. You can tell certain DNA prototypes about how they look. Everybody knows African people or people of any African descent always have a distinct nose and big lips. So if you're shooting things off of statues or whatever, you're trying to hide something. Think about it.
This is Africans buying Africans. This is within their culture.
No. That another thing.
Is it a tribe buying another tribe?
You got to understand that certain parts of Africa are not owned by Africans, but claim to be African. Right? So when I'm looking at these pictures, I see these people of Libya. They're a different color than the Africans that they're selling. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. All right. Like if you go in Algeria. That's or you go to that's a certain part of Africa, the northern part of Africa. You're not going to see. You'll see some very dark skin, but you're going to see a lot of. But even before I know light skin because you guys always push me towards research. When I learn something here, I do the research on it. What I did do research when we were talking about octoroons and when we were talking about the slave trade, I went back to do some reading, and there's actually before we started bringing people over, tribes would take over other tribes and court them into slavery. Stop. this is a one thing I knew you was gonna go there.
I'm telling you.
Listen. Always remember that the reason why they say that is because in the slave trade or whatever, the big person that did this don't want to take the bullet. I know. I'm going there. I'm going there.
This is slave
Listen to me. I got you. No, I got you because I already know where you're going. The big person in the slave trade don't want to claim fault. Okay, now when you're dealing with slavery, when people say, well, Africans, you slaved, you was the one that did it to yourself. No, because tribes would fight amongst each other, right? And if a tribe beat your tribe, it's kind of like all right, if I'm fighting with you and we having this big war and I win, instead of killing the people that were left over, right? So they would sit there and go, well, because we had this war, whatever, and it cost us money on both sides, and you're the survivors or whatever, you have to pay off a debt. Now, when they sit there and say, oh, well, it was slaves, no, they could still marry, and they never kept a slave to the point that they would die. They wasn't whipping them or nothing. You was basically a prisoner of war. They tried to put the slave on it to make it go, well, oh, it's slavery. No, you was a prisoner of war, meaning that this tribe fought each other. They didn't kill you, but now you became a prisoner of war. So what they would do is, hey, now that you're a prisoner of war, you owe us debt because we went to war with you. You know what I mean? Any war always causes slavery. No, it's not slavery. No, it's not slavery because they did have freedoms. The slave, because when people think of slavery, they think of what happened to the Africans in the big elite. That wasn't slavery. That was some whole other stuff. A prisoner of war is something different than a slave.
So what about today now with Libya, with what we see?
That's slave stuff. You know what I'm saying? Being a prisoner of war, that's what I'm trying to tell you. The Europeans always want to give the blame because they don't want to sit there and say, well, my great-great-grandfather did some stuff they shouldn't have did. What they saw was a group of people doing prisoner of war. Like, you know what? We're going to conquer people, you know what I mean, or whatever. We had a war, whatever, boom, boom, done. So now you're a prisoner of war. You have to pay your debt. And after they pay their debt, they let them go. They let them marry. They let them have sex. They didn't beat on them, whatever. It was basically going, hey, listen, you got to pay your debt with us because we went to war with you. We won the war. Or they would say, instead of, or if they didn't want to do prisoner of war.
Not everybody was that kind. Not
Africans wasn't doing stuff like that. Put it this way: if it was so bad, oh wait,
you have no choice. You're powerless.
No, it wasn't powerless. It was a respect amongst each other. It was going. It's kind of like when you put the flag up and say, hey, okay, you know what, we did wrong. Yeah. Whatever, we're gonna pay our debts, and that's what they did. They paid their debts.
Is there comments on IG? I've never done IG live.
I just started IG, but there might be some on yours because it's been on.
Yeah. So it was a prisoner of war and a slave is two different things. Prisoners of war they would try to consider them slaves. No, they could marry, they could have kids. Once they paid their debt, they was free to go.
Yeah.
It was more of on an honor system of like, listen, we did fight, we did have a little stuff. We might have destroyed some temples or whatever, so we're gonna work our debt off.
But here it is, 2017.
2017. Here's the thing,
and we see it today.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an actual video of it.
Yeah, because like I just told you, the Arab, some people don't want to put credit to certain stuff. I hate to say this, but the Arab he's been one of the most biggest figures as far as the African downfall. He always has. You don't take over Egypt, Morocco, Albania, all that north part of Africa is taken over. Half of Africa's religion is Islam. How is that? How is that? And some people will say, well, Islam is an African religion, and it's not. You got Christianity and Islam controlling half of Africa. When Africa never messed with neither one of those religions before they came to that continent. So that's telling you who's playing the major role. And the top half of Africa is Islam, and the bottom half is Christianity. And they're fighting amongst each other. So
that's why the slavery is coming in.
The slave trade has never stopped. Put it this way, it's just been swept under the rug. The slave trade has never stopped. Like if you was to go to Egypt, when you see all the monuments and stuff, they smoke in, they cigarette butts, they treat it with so much disrespect. But if you was to go to a Islamic a temple, or what do they call it?
Yeah.
Or whatever. They're not going to do that because they look at all the stuff like the pyramids of Giza, whatever. That's just to bring stuff into their country because they know they didn't build that. You know what I'm saying? They know they didn't build that. So that's just a tourist That's a way of getting revenue for their country. Oh, look at this, look at that, whatever, whatever. But if you was to treat their Islamic temples the same way you treated the pyramids and the Sphinx and all that other stuff, they would behead you because that's something that they built.
I am curious because I know today in London people marched for that. Like it brought like an uprising.
Yeah, but
I
look
think
how
they
long
went to
it
the
took.
Libyan consulate, I think, to protest it. So I'm just a little shocked, just because maybe not so much so. I guess. I mean, look, human rights are always being messed with, right?
Yeah, and we got like black
Human rights
market
everywhere.
You always ready? Now I'm looking at Libya, right? Libya, like I already knew this. I always put it on a grand scale. Libya is right next to where? Egypt.
Egypt and Algeria.
And Algeria. Remember I talked about Algeria? You got Morocco and all this other stuff,
And then
right?
across the street you have Greece, and around the water, Italy.
Okay.
It's right on
So
the,
ready? The northern part of Africa, they try to say that the northern part of Africa has nothing to do with the people of the southern part of Africa or the western part of Africa. You know what I'm saying? But the reason why they say that is because they conquered the top parts of Africa. They conquered all that.
The Moors.
You know what I'm saying? No, the Moors are the reason why they conquered it. You know what I'm saying? Because the Moors got defeated or whatever the case may be. That's another history lesson. But if you look at, you can even see the difference between the names. You know, Saudi Arabia, Libya, Algeria. But then you go down here and you got Angola, you got Kenya, Ethiopia. Do those sound like those match?
Kind of.
No, they don't. They don't sound like they match.
They all end in A.
Just because they end in A, that they don't match. They don't match. You get what I'm saying? But you know, Africa has always been the centerpiece of the world. So when I seen Libya doing this, I knew that was up. They always been doing this.
And again, it's so if Libya is doing it, who else is doing it?
There's a whole bunch of people doing it.
I mean, and it's not. I mean, from you hear stories even over here when it comes to sex slaves and
Brazil's
trafficking
known for that.
and
Brazil's
I mean,
highly
Rhode
known for
Island,
that.
Central Falls, Rhode Island, they had a thing a few years ago.
Did they?
Yes, they did.
Oh,
it was like a ring of like 10+ people.
oh, was that of the child molestation?
Well, it was
one.
child sex slavery.
Yeah,
they
I
were
heard about that
chained to
one.
beds, and this was
I was like,
this
yo.
is 15 minutes from here.
Yeah, I know that was bugged out.
Yeah.
But then, like you said,
in the city that I grew up in, right? That you guys stop.
I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it.
But it was sad to know that as I'm driving through these years, we're driving by people that are enslaved in these homes, and it's just.
But you got black market for organs and all this other stuff. Everything. But here's the thing, like I said.
Money. It's money.
It's not even about the money. We're not gonna know about this news because due to certain TV stations and newscasters, they're not trying to put that out there.
But we're putting it out there.
Of course. But you know why we're putting it out there? Because it's the same thing with Vietnam War. Everybody was okay with the Vietnam War until they started seeing pictures of what was really going on. You know what I mean? Like the Vietnam War, people was like, oh, you know, whatever. And then they started showing videos and pictures and stuff like that. And people was like, oh, snap.
I think Vietnam War would have been shorter had they had social media back in the day. Don't you think? Because real things was really happening. And I think it would have been a halt to it. Because back in the day, the way that people thought compared to today. Today, we're a little more desensitized. But if there was social media, people would see what was really happening.
I think that's what they don't want. They don't want us having that freedom because media controls the narrative. Media controls how you think. It goes back to the book 1984, right? They just want to control the way you think by visuals, programming, and having people like us and everyone have access to the internet to be able to change the way people think. Like, for example, you mentioned you talk about your Kemetic teachings in history and spirituality and stuff like that. It was about a year ago I came to you, was like, yo, what you know about this? You've been looking at that, I've been looking at you. Like, yeah. But I would have never started thinking along that path years ago because that stuff wasn't around. Like, it was there, but I had no idea that stuff existed. And I think that the internet, because we have so much access to so much, like we're thrown in a world where we think. I remember thinking as a kid, thinking that either you were Catholic or you were going to hell or whatever. You know, that's just like very simple, right? You think everyone's a Catholic that believes in God, and everyone else is just
heathens,
right? And then it's like, and that's how they want to keep you.
Right.
But then, you know, now that we have the internet and access to all this information, you start to look, and I'm like, yo,
the world is
everything open. It's all a Truman Show. Like I see how much so much stuff is just blocked. BS. I can tell you in the last 3-4 years, I've totally changed about how I see things, only because I have more information.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I think that's becoming a problem for.
If you don't know what Truman Show is,
people that are trying to conceal it,
Jim
trying
Carrey
to hold it down.
Yeah. Look at the Truman movie, and you'll get what that means. Because some kids, some youngins are like Truman Show.
Yeah, it's just like it's just living in a world that's fake, where everything you're fed and everything you see, it's put there on purpose to make you believe a certain way. So that, I mean, that's what our life is. I say still is to a certain degree. I think the internet and different people have access are kind of chipping away at that. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the reasons why they don't want to.
That's why they want to slow that internet down.
Yeah. They want to slow it down. I mean, we look at the Russia and influencing the election and all that stuff. That's what they did. I mean, it's like, it's so weird. Like I really feel like 2014 and 15, I think we kind of talked about this before. I feel like I was like an experiment was ran against me.
Oh, like somebody was being punked.
Because like listen, this is the truth. If you look at really think about it. Look at all the comedy and the skits and the videos that I did. They were all based on a certain narrative. They were very, I don't want to say angry, but they were very aware of police brutality. Like everything, you know what I'm saying? I had to let that out because that was a lot of things that I was seeing. But if you recall that time, every video I saw on Facebook was someone getting shot. You know what I'm saying? I've seen so much of it. Here's a question. Do you see that every day now?
Yeah.
You see it every day still? Yeah. I don't see it every day. I don't see
what the police brutality stuff. I'm gonna tell you how it goes. How it goes for me. Like I'll see some police brutality stuff, and then it'll go away for a little bit, and then another thing will come up. It seems like it's a distraction, right? So like I was dealing with the police brutality, boom, boom, done, and then it turned into the Black Lives Matter thing, and then that quieted down, and then when that quieted down, Donald Trump came into office or whatever, so then the racial tensions got right back up again, but not with police brutality. It just got like more crazy. Then it went down again with like women's movement, or somebody got killed, or like that Kanika Jenkins situation. It seemed like certain little things would come up here and there. Like I remember that this dude was on Facebook Live just randomly shooting people, you know what I mean? And then out of nowhere, the racism would come back again. Like, the tiki torches and, all this other stuff, and then it would die down.
But I don't see the Michael Browns, the Trayvons. I don't see those types of things.
You don't see those type of things?
I feel like, I'm not saying that they're not there, but I feel like they wanted to push it to us for a certain reason as an experiment, to be like, okay, watch, we push this on them, watch how they happen. Now
how will they react?
And we all acted a certain way. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's programming at its best. And so what Russia was doing, they're like, all right, we'll just take out some, we'll push out some content to make them, influence the election. So it's a powerful thing. And when you think about marketing and advertising and selling your product, I mean, you can think about it like that's powerful tool. You can, you can actually paint someone's world
on the internet
with the information. All you have to do is get on their feed, and you can actually paint a picture and have them believe what you want them to believe. And it doesn't take a lot to influence somebody.
No, it don't. And I've noticed with myself, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm on the internet, whatever the case may be, but I have to literally, like, step outside myself. Like, I remember you just saying, like, right now, you're like, oh, I didn't know that was going on with Libya. Guess what? There's a country called, it's right next to Ethiopia. It's called Eritrea. I think I'm saying it correctly, Eritrea. And you never hear about them for the simple fact that they don't allow nobody in their country to even record the most that you can look on YouTube about this country, the most you can get in video of the country is maybe like not even 10 minutes of stuff, because the government is on the government locked down their phones, their internet, their TV, what they can watch, what they can't watch. It's crazy. And this country is right on the outskirts of like
is it in that map?
Yeah, you can find it's a very small little
like North Korea to me.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. And like I said, the people can't do it, whatever. And I actually reason why I found out about it is because I actually work with a guy, and he tried to like when I first met him, because I told him, I was like, listen, I study all of Africa. I was like, so he was telling me, oh, I'm from here, but you know, he was kind of trying to he wasn't trying to explain who he was. So me being me, I just happened to go, all right, what country I want to mess with today about Africa? And I found that. And I was like, I never seen that before, whatever. So I went to him and I said, tell me, I was like, what country you from again? And he was just like, oh, you know, I'm from here. And I was like, no, you're not. I was like, you're from Urethra, aren't you? And he looked at me, he goes, you're a different person. He goes, I said, he goes, all right, yeah, I am from there, but I don't like to say that I'm from there for the simple fact that that country is known to like be very bad. Like they don't even like to send people to the Olympics, and then once they send somebody to the Olympics, if they come back or if they talked a little too much, they end up dying. Or it's just a very bad.
What's their thing then? What are they hiding?
They want to preserve their culture.
They want to preserve their culture.
There? Is that what it is?
No, they want to preserve their culture.
They say Elvis left the building. Maybe he went to that country.
Yeah, maybe he did. But like I said, and this is stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and this is stuff that you know what I mean. Like I said,
which one is it?
It's right. Hold up. It's because I just had the map right there. Eritrea. It's right there.
Ooh, it's tiny.
Ethiopia is right there. It's right. It's like this little boom boom done.
Look at that little one next to it.
Yeah.
I was seeing something reading, and they was talking about this reporter was like kind of close by, and they killed them because it was like. I wonder if that
next to that country?
I'm not sure if it's the same.
Whoa!
It was saying like, they don't want people like you can't. They don't want you flying around.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same thing. They don't want you flying around. They don't want you flying around. They have their own TV.
Hitting rocks.
They have their own network where they put on what they want you to watch. You know what I'm saying? Their own network where it's like boom, boom, everything is the same schedule. There's no like say, you know, if you want to, you know, hear, oh, you know what, you know, I want to watch Telemundo. Not there, you don't. You don't watch no Telemundo. Oh no, you don't. No, you don't do none of that.
Is it a Muslim country? I'm assuming. Huh? I'm assuming it's a Muslim.
Yeah, it's definitely a Muslim country. And like I said, you barely hear about them. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, when I was looking up stuff. Like, you know, how many athletes that they let, because, you know, you think of Ethiopia, you think long distance running. Right. So I'm thinking, you know, that country's right next to Ethiopia. They probably have some amazing long distance runners. They probably do, but they're, you know, and this is just that country. Imagine how many other places that are like that you never hear about. You never hear about it because in America,
well, it's wrong, and they need to stop it.
Well, I wouldn't say it's wrong. I mean, when
it comes to slave trading, it's wrong.
Yeah, the slave trading is wrong. But they do that, controlling media and stuff like that. They do it for a certain reason. Same reason why you control what comes into your house, what's on your television, so your kids. You're like, yo, I don't want this outside influence changing the way my kids think. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So you don't allow it. So it's kind of in that same respect. Yeah. They have a certain country.
And I agree with you on that.
They want things to go a certain way. And they don't want to be influenced. So it's bad and good. In America, we kind of feel like, oh, everyone should be able to do what they want, right? Only because we want to go over there and sell them Coke and Pepsi and stuff. That's what all we really care about. You know what I'm saying?
We just want to go over there and corrupt some shit.
Yeah, maybe it does work for them. You know, maybe maybe they don't, because we're not like killing it over here. We're freaking shooting, killing each other. Yeah. You know what I mean? We don't have any respect for certain things. So,
just like you said though, you want to monitor. Like what comes in your house. Like for me, example, like don't get me wrong, I have a lot of gay friends, and I respect the gay culture, but when it comes to like